for the readers that, but even for the children, they have that kind of version. So when I ventured to translate Pali Tipitaka to the Thai language and the chief editor, published by Mahajula right now, I share your feeling that make it readable. It happened at that time that our chief advisor was Princess Siringpon, the current our advisor. So she warned me that readability should be different or ward off over simplification. Somehow because we want it to be easy to understand. You translate in such a way that it is so simple, there is no room for interpretation. Which is different, that is your approach. Because you challenge the reader to criticize you because it means that you have to pinpoint what you mean by this Pali sentence. Anyone can can criticize you and can give the alternative opinion to your point. This is great achievement. But the point is, maybe for Vinaya, is a different thing. That's why we have commentaries. Because the Pali original is sometimes it's vague. It needs interpretation. So in that case, suppose the language is not quite clear, we keep translation version as such, but put your own interpretation in footnote, so that the reader can consult with the commentary later on. I take this kind of approach as an official translation plus readability. If it is not clear in the original translation or in Pali, that's why we have to look into commentary. And your own opinion may be different from commentary. I leave room for the footnotes to put your own different interpretation or even to add the commentaries in the footnote. That is the way I make our translation in Thai to be partially official and partially readable. Somehow it is academic because there is footnote, the way the writer tries to do. But my intention seems to be different for you. When I read your footnote, it's there because there are so many versions of translation of Dikanikaya. There is no question of say ambiguity. Most of translation has been direct and interpreted in such a way. But if you want to follow their path, you have to add your own opinion interpretation to make it look academic. That why footnotes is required. But how far we can add so many footnotes in our publication? Suppose translation just for 2 lines, but put the left after that just a footnote maybe is distract the reader. So I have to discuss this method as the one to launch publication. It's good, but where to put it? I know it may be difficult, but not reasonable for translation for 2 lines, and the left in that page is for footnote. Vinaya. The Vinaya is is the text for the monastic laws. So the language of the law
maybe official interpretation footnote may be helpful in that. The way that Alexis talk about solemn language, it's ceremony or something. So I'm talking of two principles: readability and readability approach and official translation. So it happens that our effort is in because to be sanctioned and approved by the Supreme Sangha Council of Thailand. So it is official approach and make it readable by means of footnote or anything. That is what I mean. So, but come back to your work. It's, I mean, 80% is okay, it's official translation, but this is just to want you to take, to keep in mind that what we expect from Vinaya, it may be different from readability approach alone. So please mix together two principles. Another thing, come to your point, repetition. Repetition that you try to say to connect the idea together, to skip repetition because it is a oral transmission. The reason you explained in your introduction, I agree with that. But how far to keep the reader understand that this is this omission is for readability, and it is not a kind of changing the original Pali or to cut it out. The original is there. They can go to see. You can say put 3 dots or anything when you just say abridge it or anything to make it aware that the original Pali is more. Like in Pali, we have Payala. That this was it. This is my opinion, but we can discuss. But the point of discussion is like this. I mean, for the concern of Thai Supreme Sangha Council, I just reflect that concern. Another thing is our friend just mentioned here is the key words like the Buddho Bhakava Sukhato. These terms is not a just general one, because when you look at the commentary, they devote much time for interpret the word Buddha, Bhakava, in there. So when we translate in Thai, they say that you keep it because in the future we will translate commentary into the Thai language. If you just reserve this term, how can commentary make sense if there is no such interpretation and no translation at all mentioning about the Buddha Bhakava there? How can commentary related to translation edition? So in that case, if in a commentary spend much time for interpretation, some terms, keep it. Because in the future, who knows, we are maybe requested to translate commentary and put together so that they can understand the term like the synonyms of the Buddha, etc. That is one thing. For the future translation and commentary, why we have to keep these words for the sake of interpretation in commentary later on. But if you want to make it simplify, you can put in the footnote like in this term, you just like this, something at the beginning. Another point is that in the case of consistency, I find that in Sutanta brand keep every word Bhakava without translation, untranslated. Instead of substituting with the word Buddha, he put Bhakava in the sentence. And many words related to the Buddha he keep without translation. That is another approach. But I don't think that we can allow the Tripitaka translation in the same series to have so differentiating appear in different volumes. For example, another point, for example, not only this, in your Vinaya translation, there are a Dhamma topics like Loba, Dosa, Moha. This is categories, the mula, the roots of the unwholesome. Loba, Dosa, Moha in Vinaya, Pitaka, translated as something. Whereas in Suttanta, translated another thing, which is similar to Abhidhamma of Sarachos. Then I find that at the beginning, last year, 2 years ago, when we talked about glossary, and there was suggestion that we should leave this glossary for the free choice of translators. Choose few words, 100, or just as you remember, Brahmali mentioned, I remember, Bodhipakkhya Dhamma, 37 of them. But after we put together the first volume of Vinaya, Suttanta, and Abhidhamma, I find that the key term of Dhamma appears in summary as a compendium in the first part of Dhamma Sankhani. Everything is there. Really? Yeah. I'm surprised to see that Hiri Ottappa, which is a simple term for the Dhamma, translated differently in Abhidhamma by Sarachos. And in other texts, maybe 3 or 4 words in English for translating Hiri Ottappa. But it is compulsory that the definition of Hiri Ottappa given clearly in Abhidhamma. Phassa. What is Phassa? It is already there. Definition of all the category of all the terms given clearly in the first book of Abhidhamma. And how can we allow the definition in Abhidhamma of the terms to appear otherwise different from the translation of the same terms without definition as in Abhidhamma to reappear in different ways in our Tripitaka. See, my concern is that instead of looking at Abhidhamma as a different territory that to go on its own way, maybe we have to, in this meeting, we just reached agreement whether you agree with the definition of Chitta, Mano, Vijnana, 5 aggregates as appear in Abhidhamma, because that is a summary of Suttanta and Vinaya. Every terms are there. If we reach that agreement, then it is very easy because consistency for the Dhamma term will be there. That is, I find out, and thanks to Abhidhamma translation. Otherwise, I would not get this idea. But I would like you to, when you are here, you look at Sarachot translation. Wholesome, kusala, akusala exists already there, but should reach the agreement only when we think that we should have except that this is just specific for Abhidhamma, that's all. That is another case. But the thing is, if it is a common practice and in Abhidhamma, Theravada Buddhism, why it is Theravada? Because it is different from Sarvastika Vada in Abhidhamma, Sanskrit Abhidhamma. We right now in views of Buddhist scholars, we are Theravada because of Abhidhamma, right? Abhidhamma and meditation. If Abhidhamma, we just leave it away and leave the term be translated differently from Suttanta and Vinaya, how can it be called Theravada in this sense? I think because Abhidhamma in Mahayana, Abhidhamma in Sanskrit is different from Pali. This is one thing. Another point is that I would like to draw your attention. I give you example. For example, what would you translate the term, say, sanya, rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara? Sanya perception. Normally we understand it, but it was translated differently in Abhidhamma here that we have with us. So I have to make it out. What is it? And to check it, okay, form is rupa, vedana feeling, but for sanya, different. It's a different term. This is surprised me because at least we have to use this kind of consistency in our translation. That is one thing. Another important thing that we have our friends here from the Thai side is that when you present your translation, we expect the original Pali is Sayamaratha. You follow in accordance to that. From time to time, when I check, some version translation just quote the Pali or refer to the original Pali different from it appear in Sayamaratha. So I check it. I find out that that person used Chattasankhiti as original text for translation. Without checking, I won't know. But I check why it's different and compare Sayamaratha and Chattasankhiti. There is a variant. So the original text, when you on the page, different from the footnote. So if you take Sayamaratha, so you keep the footnote in Chattasankhiti as the original text. So it's just this kind of checking. So the thing is that if our Thai team who can read the Sayamaratha fluently because it's a Thai script, won't look into the English translation and compare with the original Thai, how can we know that there is say I would say that it is a faithful translation of Sayamaratha. When we mention in our introduction that this is the translation of Sayamaratha, but I cannot blame our friend because sometimes you check with the Romanized script to speed up your translation, but who knows? Maybe different from Sayamaratha. I'll give you example from Tika Nikaya. I may ask you also. When you talk about, when you translate Brahmacharya Sutta, Brian, Brahmacharya Sutta on the point about the four reasons of Puppha Hetuka Vada, the ancient, the births in the past birth, how many births you count? First reason, you can recollect, say, 1 to 10. That is the first reason why they have Puppha Hetuka Vada. And the second may be from 20 to 30. And the third one may be 30 to 40, something like that. Yeah, okay. Yeah, and now you remember. What surprised me is that you mix the second reason with the third reason to be connect to be the same. Like the way the abbreviation, repetition, you mix it. Whereas in the Sayamaratha Pali original, they give the full account of the third reason different from the second one. but without mentioning that this is your policy, you just do it in this place alone, no other. Just connect from 20 to 40 to be the third, the second and the third reason. Then I check with other, maybe you compare with PTS Pali edition. Unfortunately, last night I didn't have the PTS Pali edition in my hand. So I checked with other version of translation, for example, from Bhikkhu Bodhi. Bhikkhu Bodhi also did the same thing that you do. So I doubt that you refer to PTS edition that they have abbreviated, put together like that. So in that case, if you look into the Thai Sayamarat, maybe we have to keep it full, in full. The second and the third and separate because you didn't mention about the repetition and it just happened to be there. So I hope that the Thai team will help you to check so that we can be faithful. Because I understand because you have to, but sometimes when you translate, you have to look to the Romanized original. And when you use it, when you try to put the page number and come to the Sayamarat. But this, I request our Thai team to help you to compare, to inform you that sometimes there is Payara in PTS, but no Payara in Sayamaratha. What to do? At least we have to be aware. So if you want to follow the Payara in PTS, you put in footnote that in this case I have to do this according to the reason that Venerable Brahmali has done. This is the way that make our approach to be partially official translation. I have to emphasize it because I represent the Sangha. They expect official translation. Right now you have translation many versions, especially in this course. Available online, but what would be the official one? Maybe PTS we take it, but this one also from the Thai Sangha we expect that. But it should be better when we apply readability. I agree with you. We use the modern language and readability approach, not to compensate with the official faithfulness. That's all. That is my observation, and we want you to share the idea what to do. So, or what you have done. The other volumes for translation. This is just I just have some sketch idea. Yeah.
Okay. I would like to give emphasis to Brian Lipman and also Brahmali to make some comment as to, or maybe ask question as to what Venerable Chairman had just said. Thank you. Brian.
Thank you, Bhante. Brilliant analysis. Thank you. Just one question before I talk. Are you saying that the Thai version of the Siamrata in Thai script is different in some places than the Romanized version that we're working from?
No.
No. Okay. Just I wanted to clarify that. The Romanized version is accurate to the Thai version.
Lipman, let me just add one point. Not related and not part of this topic, but what I have compared Patana in the Abhidhamma because we have to do a lot of reading as part of the ritual. And at the same time, I want the English practitioners, English devotees who read the PDS and also the Thai who reads the Thai Pali and the Burmese who read the Chabasangana. Only then I discovered that the Piala were quite different, where people made Pialas. So this is, when it comes to that point, we have to follow the Siamrat because we are working with and for the Siamrat. Thank you.
Yeah, well, the issue of repetition, I think, is very important. And Alex and I have dealt with that to a certain extent. I think to a certain extent, for example, in the Silakandavaga, it's called the Silakandavaga because of the silas are repeated about 8 or 9 times. But the Thai, I believe, only repeats it 3 times. And in order to deal with it, I think the way we handled it, Alex, I think what we agreed to, and I think how I followed it, was that we repeated it where the Siamrata repeated it, and where the Siamrata had the payelas, we actually followed the exact payela. So if we gave the first sentence, for example, of the paragraph, we put the first sentence in, then we had the ellipsis. And then we continued down to the end where it talks about he realizes there's nothing further for this life. For naparam itatataya pajanati. So there's a case where I think the abbreviation is appropriate because the Siamrata has abbreviated. There are other cases where I haven't abbreviated it as you've done, Brahma, and I understand why you've done it. But at the same time, I felt that to use Alex's words, the solemnity of the formality of the Buddha Vachana, wasn't properly represented unless we sort of tried to capture that feeling, the orality feeling on which it was originally transmitted. That's how it was transmitted. It was transmitted. These repetitions were mnemonic devices, but they weren't just mnemonic devices. They were also emphatic devices, and they were meant to be recited. And once they were recited, it acted not only to help them the monks remember it, but also help to imprint it, patiga, to imprint it in their inner being. So to a certain extent, I've tried to, where I felt it was appropriate, I've tried to follow that. And I've repeated it, even though it does sound a little bit stilted to a modern person who's not accustomed to this oral method. And they're certainly not accustomed to the idea of everybody sitting down and reciting Buddha Dhamma. But I tried to capture that in some of my translations. On the other hand, in cases where I felt it was monotonous and the Siamrata did repeat it, I have abbreviated it because I felt it was too monotonous to repeat it. It's like we just said it, just as you've done, Venerable Mali. You've just said it in one paragraph, and then it's said in another paragraph, and then it's said in the third paragraph, the exact same thing. This is reported, then it's reported to the Buddha, and then somebody else reports. In a case like that, where I didn't feel it contributed to the solemnity, it was just repetition, I have cut it. I have simplified it. Just said, he said this. He said as above, or whatever the words that we used. So I guess a decision would have to be made about that. I think an important point that you brought up, a very important point, is the idea of terminology. We did have a meeting 2 years ago, Venerable Mamali, myself, and Sarah. I think we're the only ones who attended it. Alice, you attended it later, afterwards, where we basically finalized all the technical terms or that did come up in the 3 Pitakas. And I think perhaps we should have a sub-meeting again and finalize that, and everybody should follow that. Because, and not to criticize anyone, but other people have been translating, like, common terms, like Vedana and Sanya and Bhajanati in a way that, not in a non-traditional way. So that I think is a good idea. I think perhaps to sum up what you were saying, the simplicity versus faithfulness to the Siamrata edition, perhaps the right answer is just that we find the middle way. That when the repetition goes towards the solemnity and formality that we want, and the emphasis that we want to make about that particular Buddha Dharma teaching, then we repeat it. When it simply, when it doesn't, then we don't have to. Of course, that's a subjective decision. So, as everyone was saying, to a certain extent, you have to leave that to the translator. Another, I think, important point that Brahmali brought up is this. Venerable Brahmali brought up is this use of the Buddha's use of, and it's of near synonymic repetition. It's a characteristic of the way the Buddha talked. The Buddha believed that language was a malleable thing, and language created reality. But reality, it was a false reality. It was something we superimpose on reality, like the word atta. We say atta, and therefore we all believe that there's a self. So in a lot of cases, the Buddha will have a decentered approach to language. He'll repeat something, a different saying, as you pointed out in one of your examples with Ikirati. Yeah. In every single case, I've always translated that because I felt that the Buddha was trying to tell us something, that he's looking at reality from different points of view. It was a multidimensional point of view from reality. And yes, it could be simplified. You could simplify all those things, Mahakala and all those things down to one word and say old. But each one, I think, adds a different subtlety and a different dimension. So if the Buddha used 5 words, I always use 5 words, sometimes I use 6. Why? Because in English, for one word, we may have several different possibilities. Like the words you were talking about, hiri or tapa. There's several different possibilities for that in English. And we may not want to just reduce it to one word, being ashamed or whatever it is. We may want to use 2 words or 3 words to capture the one word, because the one word in Pali has many words in English. So these are some of my thoughts. I have lots more, but I know I'll be talking all afternoon, so I'll leave it to other people as well.
Brahmali, any response to the Venerable Chairman?
Thank you very much for your comments, Bhante. I have tried some of those things that you have mentioned in the sense of I understand it. Actually, I feel also it is very important that the word of the Buddha should have a certain solemnity about it. Otherwise, you lose the sense of respect and that sort of thing. I think that's a very important point, and I agree with that. And I have actually thought about that when I did this. And so, for example, with the Patimokkha rules, I tend to be more conservative in the way I phrase them. With the Sangha Kamma, I tend to be more conservative because I understand these are important principles of the Dhamma. Whereas where is the narrative in a story, I tend to be more liberal. But I'm sure that my judgment has not always been right, and I'm very happy to make adjustments to the text as we go along. So I certainly welcome your comments and thank you for the comments.
Okay, one suggestion from Dr. Lipman about the list of words that you and Saresho and also Ajahn Brahmali that you have worked on. It would be good, maybe this is the right time to distribute it again.
Yes.
If you have it, okay, maybe tomorrow.
I have it here.
Okay, thank you.
Tom,
Okay, we can give it to Tom. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So, Alex, anything? Do you want to summarize?
Yeah, just to summarize it, I think this last bit is quite important because these 3 volumes that we are discussing these days are hopefully going to be the model on which we build the rest of the series. So if we could come up with a list of, as we said, about 100 terms that we all translate in the same way, then for translators who are working on other volumes, like myself, then that will be very useful. And I think we will save time and we will gain more consistency. So I think we are on the right track.
We already have that.
Another thing is about the program that help us to identify the different translation in the 3 volumes, so that we can make a decision which one we should select, or we just let it be like that, what the translator offer. So we have a program, Trados, adopt it and to be our way to compare the different translation or manuscript so that we can reach an agreement if there are some point of discrepancy and different what should we correct it to make it the right thing. So I asked Kun Bhakawan what the progress of this program Trados, especially for the 3 volumes at the beginning, 3 volumes that we are planning to publish. Kun Bhakawan. เอาไมโครโฟนให้ไม่พูดเลยเหรอพูดทำไมsome difficulties. We will discuss after lunch because it takes time.
I add something. ได้ยินไหมคะ
Okay, please,อาจารย์มณีรัตน์
So because you asked about the program Trados, so as far as I work with some technological personnel, this is what we expect before. I mean consistency, style of writing, all kinds of things. So we are now working on the book 12, I think it's 12, but I couldn't remember his long name. We try to put Pali in one segment and the translation in the other segment in order to compare. And we think that we will provide some kind of draft in the middle of June. But the problem is that we don't have the complete draft from the translators. First thing, I think you see, because I listened to the presentation and I appreciate the dedication, but as far as I know, we haven't made an absolute conclusion how we translate first thing, and I just pick up some important points. For example, the first one, this is the sacred text. I mean the text type, the sacred text. So the broad spectrum or the parameter of the text is already limited by its text type. So if we go to simplicity, which is not the same as simplification or readability, so we have to agree upon it. And the second thing is that the translation ceiling. Okay, for example, when someone mentioned about the way or the methodology of translation, you put words like lucid, simple, and I don't know, friendly, use the readers. This one, it means that it depends upon individual translation a lot. So we should have translation ceiling in order to limit, not to be too below or not to be above. The third thing is that terminology. We have a lot of problems on terminology, so we have to agree upon it. And even for repetition, that the chairman already explained a lot, and it's very good, which I agree totally with him. Repetition is not the same as anaphora. So we have to know which one we should keep and which one we cannot. We cannot judge from our own individual experience or interpretation. And the last thing is consistency, which computer can help us a lot. Now we move just not only translation memory of the traders, we put a little bit into the area of AI, which I think I can submit to the president of the meeting, and then and then later we can discuss. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Maniran. Thank you.
คุณภัควัต just informed me that he tried to put the first volume of Vinaya Mahavibhankha in the program that is side by side Pali and English, almost complete this version, so we can check through the program any consistency or inconsistency. As for another 3 volumes of your Brian, I think that is in another matter of priority. I think we should give priority to the first volumes of Suttanta and Dhamma Sankhani, the priority for the put in the program so that we can compare and use the computer program for correction. It takes time, but now it almost complete the first Vinaya volumes. That he informed me.
I think we have heard a number of important points this morning from the translators, editors, and also some comments. Now the time is coming to almost at lunchtime, and maybe this is the time to adjourn the meeting and then come back again at 1 o'clock. So we see you at 1 here. Thank you.
Now it's time for lunch. I would like to invite you all to have lunch at another building. Would you please follow our staff? Thank you very much.
โอ้สุดๆเลยประชาสงครามไม่หลวงพ่อประชาสงคราม92พาผมบินทบาทวันแรกได้ไข่1 วันครับนี่มีประชาสงครามครับคนที่สั่นเยอะสงครามมาบอกแล้วให้ตามสตาร์ไปที่ตลาด